Maybe you've never been to Greensville, but if you did, you would remember seeing a small bike shop in the center of town. It isn't anything pretty to look at, nestled back on the corner of Beecher and Stowe like it is, but if you went to Greensville, you'd probably take a peek inside on a tip from the locals. Inside, you'd be greeted by the pleasant smell of chain grease and rubber, and as you struggled to walk between the mess of bikes that cover the floor and the walls, a man would appear at your side, seemingly from nowhere, with a toothy, crooked smile. After shaking your hand like he was trying to cool it off, he would introduce himself, and you will have met Hank Fullman. Everybody in Greensville knew who Hank Fullman was. He owned the bike shop, yes, but he held several other minor positions in town, albeit in an unofficial capacity. He was a handyman when someone needed a sink fixed, a therapist when someone needed to talk, and a father to a young girl named Deborah, who was a spitting image of her mother, deceased from cancer 10 years ago. Hank was the kind of man that people couldn't help but like, but he was also the kind of man who didn't let the admiration of others change him. He wasn't the type to give unsolicited advice, but when asked about how he lived, he would always smile and say, "No secrets, just dependability and understanding," and leave it at that. But on this particular evening, a newcomer strolled into town who had heard of Hank, but was unsatisfied with this supposed "no secrets" answer to life. His name was Boyd Brunswick, car salesman and ambitious entrepreneur. Fresh off the train, in the navy blue suit he wore to work each day, he marched down the streets, searching for that bike shop and its much-lauded owner. You see, Boyd had a reputation as well, only his was less flattering, and he wanted to change it. Hank, he reasoned, must be less a saint and more puppet master, manipulating his own image so that no others could see his faults. In the cutthroat world of sales, that kind of skill was something to be treasured, and Boyd was excited to learn from Hank exactly how it was done. He found the bike shop without a problem, but was disappointed to find it closed for the day. Never one to let a setback slow him down, Boyd found a woman walking down the street and grabbed her shoulder. Ignoring the taken-aback look she gave him, he tried to smile and asked, "Do you know where I might find Hank Fullman this time of day, my dear?" "If he's not in the shop, then he'll be back at his house. It's the first house on Depot Road off Main Street," the woman answered, stepping back. "Though I should let you know it's supper time around here, and people don't usually—" "You've been most kind, madam," said Boyd. He began to walk away, then turned back around. "Hey, lady," he called. The woman looked back over her shoulder, but did not face him. "Yes?" Which way is Main Street?" The woman pointed to her right, and, without another word, Boyd resumed his hunt, confused as to why the woman had seemed so annoyed with him. It wasn't a huge house, but Boyd allowed that it had a kind of quaint charm to it. It was painted an alarmingly bright shade of blue, and surrounded by what looked like a lazily tended garden of wild flowers and lilies. There was a slate stone path leading up to the door, mostly covered by moss and lichen, and the lights were on in the house, which meant that his search for Hank Fullman was finally coming to an end. Boyd walked to the door and gave it 3 knocks before standing back to wait for an answer. He heard movement from within the house, the sound of a chair against a hardwood floor, footsteps that grew louder, and finally the click of a turning doorknob. Boyd tried to hide the look of disappointment as the door opened to reveal a young girl, maybe 10 years old, standing before him. She stood about 4.5 feet tall and stared up at him with an expression of amused curiosity. "Hello," she said. "Hi," said Boyd. "What can I do for you?" the girl asked. "I was wondering if I could—" "This is Hank Fullman's house, right?" The girl nodded. "I'd like to talk to your dad about a couple of things, if that's all right. Is he around?" "We're eating now," said the girl. "Is that a problem?" said Boyd. "I don't know." Before Boyd could grow any more annoyed, he was distracted by another set of approaching footsteps from inside the house, and soon the man who Boyd knew must be Hank Fullman stood framed in the doorway. Hank laid a hand on the girl's shoulder and smiled down at her. "I hope you've been behaving yourself, Deborah," he said. Then, looking back at Boyd, Hank motioned inside. I think there's enough food for a guest. Come on in. He took Deborah by the hand, and Boyd followed close behind. He was led to a room with a small table and 3 chairs. A soup or stew of some kind sat on the table, with a loaf of crusty bread. It smelled delicious, savory, with lots of earthy spices. Boyd took the only unoccupied seat at the table, and wasted no time before asking questions. So, what is it you do that gets people to like you so much? Hank laughed. Deborah, could you please get our guest a bowl and some silverware? I have the feeling he'll be here for a while. And what's that supposed to mean? Asked Boyd. Hank shrugged. Just a hunch, he said. You haven't answered my question, said Boyd, and you haven't told me your name. Boyd criticized himself for already making a social mistake. I'm Boyd Brunswick. I sell cars. You want one? I don't need a car now, but thank you. All right, but let's get back to business here. How come people like you so much? What's your secret? Before Boyd could get an answer, Deborah returned, placing a simple ceramic bowl and spoon in front of him. Eat first, Boyd, said Hank, ladling him some soup. You look like you've had a long day. And it's getting longer by the minute, thought Boyd, upset how little progress he had made. Still, he wasn't one to turn down a free meal, so he slurped his bowl of soup down quickly, hoping that he would get his answers soon. Do you like it? Asked Hank. Oh, yeah, actually I do, said Boyd in spite of himself. Good. It was my wife's old recipe. Boyd didn't respond, wiping the last bits of soup up with his bread and eating it. After he had swallowed, he looked up at Hank again with an expectant look on his face. So, are we going to talk now, or what? Hank stood up from the table. I'll need you to help me and Deborah clear the table and wash the dishes first, he winked. House rules, I'm sure you understand. Boyd's patience was growing thin, but he knew that the information he would be getting at the end of the night would be more than fair compensation for his troubles. If Hank wanted to play these kind of games and make him work for it, then so be it. He was given scrubbing duty, while Deborah dried and Hank put the clean dinnerware back on the cabinet shelves. Boyd tore through the dishes as quickly as he could, spraying water and suds on the counter, even getting his suit wet in the process. After a quarter of an hour, the job was finished, and as Hank placed the final plate on the top shelf of the cabinet, Boyd let out an exasperated sigh. All right, he said. I've been more than patient with you. It's time for us to talk, right? Hank gave him another one of his sideways smiles, which for some reason made Boyd feel very uneasy. After our meal, it's usually time I spend with Deborah before she goes to sleep. Maybe after I read her a story and she goes to bed. That's not what I came here for, said Boyd, finally losing his temper. I came here to find out why in the world your dirty old bike shop does so well, and why you seem to be so highly thought of. Now I realize that there must have been some kind of mistake, because I don't think anyone could like you. You've done nothing but ignore my very simple questions all night, and I think I'll just leave now before wasting any more of my time. He stood, glaring at Hank, breathing more rapidly than he wanted to. Hank remained motionless, the ghost of a smile hovering around the corners of his mouth. Deborah, I'll be up to read you your story in a couple of minutes. I have a few things to discuss with our guest. He leaned down and kissed his daughter on the cheek, and led her up to the stairs before turning back to Boyd. I would have hoped you would have understood by now, Mr. Brunswick. Boyd glared at Hank. Understood what? He said. I don't like to lecture people, so I was hoping you would be able to pick up on the answers to your questions without my having to explain it to you. People do enjoy my company, but it's not because I try to distract or deceive them about my flaws. It's the opposite. Boyd did not respond. People like me because I know what needs to be done, and I do it. That's it. Now, I'm not a mind reader, but it would appear to me from your actions tonight that you've got a stunning lack of knowing what needs doing. When it was time to eat, you focused on you. When it was time to clean, you focused on you. When it was time for bed, you focused on you. Now, why is that, Mr. Brunswick? That's my question, and I'll give you that answer as well. You focus so much on yourself because you don't really understand yourself, and if you don't know your own self, you'll never be able to understand the plights of others. It can't possibly be that simple, said Boyd. Your belief that true self-understanding is simple belies your inexperience on the subject, chuckled Hank. Now, if you excuse me, I need to put my daughter to sleep. Boyd nodded, his eyes distant. Yeah, you should help her out. You're already learning, said Hank. The end.